Imagine discovering a plant that humans have used for over 5,000 years. A plant that has been woven into clothing, turned into medicine, burned in religious ceremonies, and eventually smoked for relaxation. Now imagine that same plant becoming one of the most controversial substances on Earth. How did that happen? Why did ancient civilizations embrace cannabis while modern governments banned it? And was it always considered dangerous? Or did history take an unexpected turn? Today we're uncovering the complete story of cannabis, from its mysterious origins to the global debate that still divides nations today. Let's begin where it all started. Cannabis didn't begin as something people smoked. Long before cities existed, long before written language, cannabis grew wild across the vast grasslands of Central Asia. Historians believe humans first encountered the plant thousands of years ago while hunting and gathering. At first, cannabis wasn't valuable because of its effects on the mind. It was valuable because it was incredibly useful. Its fibers were strong enough to make ropes. Its stalks could be woven into cloth. Its seeds were packed with nutrients and healthy oils. For early civilizations, cannabis was simply another useful crop. But eventually, people discovered something unexpected. Certain varieties of the plant produce sticky flowers covered in resin. When heated, those flowers created unusual effects on the brain. Exactly who discovered this remains a mystery. It may have happened by accident around a campfire, or perhaps during religious ceremonies where herbs were burned as offerings. Either way, humanity had discovered one of history's oldest psychoactive plants. The earliest evidence suggests cannabis wasn't always smoked. Ancient cultures often burned it during rituals. As the fragrant smoke filled enclosed spaces, participants would inhale it naturally. One of the most famous discoveries came from archaeological sites in western China. Researchers found ancient wooden braziers containing cannabis residue dating back more than 2,500 years. The evidence suggests people intentionally burned cannabis during funeral ceremonies. Why? Some historians believe they used it to communicate with spirits. Others think it helped induce deep meditation or altered states of consciousness. Around the same time, cannabis spread across Asia. In ancient India, it became connected with religious traditions and spiritual practices. Some Hindu traditions associated cannabis with the deity Shiva, though practices varied across regions and time periods. In ancient China, physicians described cannabis in medical texts, using it to treat certain illnesses according to the medical knowledge of the era. As trade routes expanded, so did cannabis. Merchants carried its seeds across continents. By the Middle Ages, it had reached the Middle East, Africa, and eventually Europe. Every culture found its own purpose for the remarkable plant. Some valued its fibers, some its medicine, others its psychoactive effects. But few imagined it would one day become illegal across much of the world. By the time cannabis reached Europe, it wasn't famous for getting people high. Instead, it became one of civilization's most valuable industrial plants. Its fibers were incredibly durable. They were used to make ropes, sails, fishing nets, clothing, and even paper. During the age of exploration, European ships depended on hemp. Without strong ropes and sails, long-distance voyages across the oceans would have been far more difficult. Some governments even encouraged farmers to grow hemp because it was considered strategically important. At that point, cannabis wasn't viewed as a dangerous drug. It was simply another useful crop. Everything began to change during the 19th and early 20th centuries. As global trade expanded, people carried different forms of cannabis to new regions. In some places, recreational use became more common. At the same time, newspapers began publishing sensational stories that linked cannabis to crime and violence. Many of those stories exaggerated or lacked reliable evidence. Fear spread faster than facts. Political tensions also played an important role. In the United States during the early 1900s, cannabis became associated with immigrant communities, especially some Mexican migrants who used the Spanish word marijuana. Prejudice against these communities influenced public attitudes. Instead of seeing cannabis as an ancient plant with many uses, many people began viewing it as a dangerous foreign drug. Public opinion shifted rapidly. Then came the 1930s. Government campaigns warned citizens that marijuana could lead to insanity, crime, and violence. One of the most famous examples was a propaganda film called Reefer Madness. The movie portrayed ordinary people becoming violent and irrational after using cannabis. Today, historians generally consider the film to be highly exaggerated and not an accurate representation of cannabis's effects. But at the time, many audiences believed it. Fear became powerful enough to influence public policy. In 1937, the United States passed the Marijuana Tax Act. Although it did not completely ban cannabis overnight, it made producing and selling it extremely difficult. Other countries gradually introduced their own restrictions. After World War II, international drug control agreements encouraged nations around the world to tighten cannabis laws. By the 1970s, much of the world treated cannabis as an illegal drug. Millions of people could face arrest simply for possessing small amounts. Yet, even while laws became stricter, scientists continued studying the plant. Researchers discovered that cannabis contains more than 100 different chemical compounds called cannabinoids. The two most well-known are THC, the compound primarily responsible for the intoxicating effects, and CBD, which does not produce a high and has been studied for potential medical uses. These discoveries raised an important question. If cannabis had been used for thousands of years, were governments right to ban it completely, or had the laws been shaped by politics, public fear, and incomplete scientific knowledge? That debate continues today. Around the world, some countries have legalized cannabis for medical purposes. Others allow recreational use under strict regulations. Meanwhile, many nations still prohibit it entirely. Scientists continue researching both its potential benefits and its risks. Evidence suggests cannabis can help with certain medical conditions in some patients, but it can also cause harmful effects, especially when used heavily by adolescents whose brains are still developing, or by people with certain mental health conditions. Like many substances, cannabis is neither a miracle cure nor a harmless plant. Its effects depend on factors such as the product, the dose, the person's age, health, and how it is used. The story of cannabis is ultimately not just about a plant. It's about culture, politics, science, economics, and how human societies decide what is acceptable and what is forbidden.